Here's what you should know about your local housing market in this week's Market Update. This week, we're looking at market stats for Morristown, Chatham, Madison, Harding, Mars Plains, Mendham, Chester, Bernardsville, Basking Ridge, and Randolph. So far, it looks like we might be seeing some relief to that inventory problem and some uptick in the sales. Beginning of January, it looked like, hey, we're going to have an early spring market. We're going to start seeing some increased market activity. It was already looking like we're going to see an increase from last year's extremely slow market activity. Then the snowstorm hit, then the extreme cold hit. Definitely put a slight damper on it, but as we look at the stats from this past week, it looks like we're kicking back into gear quickly as we see temperatures warm up above freezing. So this past week, we saw 44 homes come on the market in these towns. That's a 76% increase over the prior week. That's big news. Out of these, 24 were single-family houses and 20 were condos or townhouses. The average list price, however, this past week was $1,059,000. That's a 53% decrease over the prior week. We saw kind of a split here. We saw, Mendham with an average list price of $2,120,000. However, we saw a lot of towns with that average list price below $1 million, which we really haven't seen for a while. Morristown, Chatham, Mars Plains, Bernardsville, Basking Ridge, and Randolph all had average list prices this past week below $1 million, ranging anywhere from $585 up to $969. But we do have Madison, Harding, and Mendham all with average list prices above $1 million, as we'd expect to see. But even those average list prices were down substantially from their prior weeks. So I'm not sure what to make of that, but we'll keep an eye on that in the coming weeks. Total inventory, total number of homes currently on the market in these towns is 152 homes. That's pretty good. That's the first time in a long time we've seen that number over 150, and it's an 8% increase over the prior week. Total homes sold, that was even with last week. We saw 15 homes sell in these towns this past week. Average list price of these homes was $1,032,000. Average sale price was $1,057,000. So this past week, we saw homes in these towns sell for an average of 2.5% above the list price. Now, we did have one town with homes selling below the list price. That's Morristown and Mars Township, where we saw homes sell for an average of 3.7% below the list price. Pretty shocking. However, those were 3 homes. I looked at the breakdown. We had one condo which sold at list price, and the 2 other homes were fixer-uppers. So, a little bit not your typical type of inventory we've been seeing. I think that is probably the reason why we saw the home sales below the list price. Other than that, we saw home sales in the remaining towns at or above list price, ranging anywhere from Madison at list price, Mendham at just 0.5% above list price, Basking Ridge at list price, Chester at 1.3% above list price, and then Bernardsville 5% above list price, and Randolph 14% above list price. So the bidding wars are still happening. I'm seeing those bidding wars get pretty competitive. Obviously, it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on the type of inventory, depends on how aggressively that home was priced in the first place, but do expect stiff competition. We've still got relatively low inventory, high demand in the market, so you're going to see stiff competition for this inventory. Average days on market, 33 days on the market for homes that were sold this past week. That's a 9% decrease over the prior week. And under contract, we saw 25 homes go under contract this past week. That's a 79% increase over the prior week. So that's a pretty big bump. And then the average list price of the homes that went under contract this past week was $1,072,000. That's just a 10% increase over the prior week. And then days on market, average days on market this past week for homes that went under contract was 40 days on the market. That was a 132% increase over the prior week. Now, when you break it down town by town, Morristown, Chatham, Madison, all 14, 10, 11 days on market. We saw big days on market in Harding with one home under contract was on the market for 67 days. We saw big days on market in Chester, 2 homes that went under contract, average days on market 105 days, and the kind of middle range Basking or Ridge Randolph 59, 38 days on market. So got some outliers. Otherwise, you're looking at a week or two on the market for most of your typical inventory in most of these typical towns. So like I said, weather is warming up. Not spring type weather yet, but we're seeing things thaw out a little bit. I'm expecting that to mean a jump back into what we were seeing beginning of January with it, which is some pretty serious uptick in home buyer and home seller activity. So believe it or not, spring market is beginning. So if you are planning on making a move this spring or just thinking about it, let's start having a chat. Let's put a plan and a timeline into place so you don't miss out. Thanks so much for checking in with me. I'll catch you guys again next week.